Hello folks, you're very welcome along to the Red 78, a Munster podcast for Munster fans. My name is Ruairi O'Hagan. Certainly a lot to discuss on today's show as Munster snatched defeat from the jaws of victory in Thomond Park, and a rematch to come with Northampton Saints as well in the same competition. Who better to discuss it with than Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Fiona Hayes. Guys, how are you? Good to see you.
Good, Rory. How are you going?
All good now. Quinny, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm just about getting a bit of heat back in my body after the lashing of wind and rain in Thomond Park on Saturday. But no, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. We have to take the good and the bad, unfortunately, at the moment. And after a lovely high the week before in Toulon, disappointing defeat in Thomond Park. But I suppose probably before the Toulon game, it's probably a stupid statement to say you take a loss in Thomond Park. You Munster fans and I suppose the management would have taken around 16 place as regards with 2 games to go, given what happened against Bayonne and Exeter. But a lot of regrets, I think. You know, you just look at Bayonne beating Exeter on Sunday. If Munster got the 4th try against Northampton, they would have been home in the round 16 in April, which financially would have been the brass tacks of this is you know, and we'll discuss Peter O'Mahony's contract situation later in the show. Money is part and parcel of running a professional team, and that would have been a massive kind of coup. But look, Exeter, they lost in Bayonne on Sunday, and I just had a sneaky suspicion that could happen. And so very small margins, one more try for Munster and they have a home round 16. Now they find themselves away in Northampton again, which is not the worst thing in the world. And I mean that very respectfully to a really good Northampton side. They're very well coached, really great togetherness, seem to, have a lot of plenty of power and abrasiveness and really, effective players. And but Munster, I think there's a bit of a glimmer of hope going over there. Munster have won there before, but that's 2.5, 3 months away. There's 4 URC games, or 3 or 4 anyway, before they'll end up going there. And
even with that, Quinny, the last game of the weekend, I think I was looking at the table just before that last game, and I was on a away trip to Bordeaux. I think that was staring at us, and God, they're playing some good rugby at the minute. No disrespect to Northampton, but when I saw that kind of change around, I was thinking this is probably to get over to England, not even the travelling alone will be less. And I think it's definitely probably a little bit better. I watched Bordeaux down in Connacht, and they're definitely a dark horse for this tournament. I know a lot of people aren't talking about them, but the rugby they're playing at the minute is absolutely super. So I think it is good.
Incredibly powerful as well. But look, as I said, there's plenty of stuff to go through for Munster in the next few months, trying to get some players back, fix some of the issues, and try and get back on a good run again in the URC. So it's Northampton, they've been brilliant in the pool stages, and we have to give credit to them. I think the podcast is about trying to find out how Munster lost control of that game when they were 10 points up. Came out in the second half and got that 3rd try, and you think they're going to kick on. But it is what it is. It's frustrating, and the weather played its part a little bit as well. But it was the same for both sides. I just think Northampton, even though every team has a couple of players missing, injuries and stuff like that, they're not top of the Gallagher Premiership for nothing. And it was a big win for them. You saw what it meant to them at the end. But really deflating and disappointing end up to the pool stages for Munster. The only positive kind of glimmer of hope is that you're in the round 16. So that's a good thing. And who knows, there might be a couple of players back. And I think Munster, even going over to Northampton, it'll be really difficult. They may have a chance there. And then they won that, they'd be going to probably South Africa to play the Bulls. But it's a really tough game. So for any Northampton fans that are kind of sneaking in or checking out the pod to see what we say this week, or any journalists, I'm not for one second saying this is this is a nice, easy game for Munster. It's going to be a very difficult situation, but it's not the worst draw in the world. As you say, Fiona, if they were going to France or even going to South Africa, it would be a more daunting task.
All right, like we got plenty of texts into the show about the Munster performance. A lot of people wondering, Fiona Hayes, how the hell Munster just managed to throw that game away.
Yeah, a lot of texts this week, or tweets this week. Actually, what do you call them now? Do you say X's this week, or do we still call them tweets? But look, I think we'll chat about Peter O'Mahony. There was a general consensus around him, but we'll start off with Cian McGibney wrote in, Northampton controlled the second half, probably deserved the win. Munster kick away possession in both halves with and without the wind. The biggest question has to be, will Munster learn to manage a lead in the second half of the season and stop giving up positions? So winning positions. Another huge thing as well. There was a brilliant tweet that came in from Connor Coonan. I think we should look at that. Yeah. Basically, he went through a couple of stats. He said he was going through the stats of Munster's 4 European games this season. Quite interesting. Munster haven't scored a single point in any of the 4 games after the 63rd minute. At 60 minutes at home to Bayonne, it was 17-10. Finished 17-10. At 60 minutes away to Exeter, we were 24-13 up. We lost 32-24. At 60 minutes to Toulon, we were 29-18 up, and it ended 29-18. Still no score in the last 20 minutes. And after 60 minutes at home to Northampton, we were 20-14 up. Crowley scored that penalty on the 63rd minute, and after that, there was no more scores again. And as he said, look, after of those games, we scored 90 points, 13 tries before 60 minutes. So that's, I suppose, something the staff will have to look at on that. What do you make of that, Quinny, as well?
Yeah, it's something that I was conscious of, and I think speaking to people, rugby people who are watching Munster closely, I think some people are suggesting maybe the impact off the bench is having an effect, fatigue. And obviously when there's a bit of fatigue, you have possibly lack of control and some poor decisions. The opposition who were behind, reacting and saying, we've got to throw everything at this. And you know yourself in rugby or in sport, if you're a couple of points down or a goal down and you're still in touch, you kind of get a surge of energy to throw everything at it. And they're the kind of game management moments that we talk about, withstanding that pressure, being really disciplined, not giving easy penalties for teams to get up along the touchline, not forcing the pass that we knock it on and they get a scrum and they get a territorial position on you. So all that kind of stuff, when you're under pressure, it's that cool mind that you want. And I just think, so it's probably a little bit of all of the above. The impact off the bench, i.e. the experience and the quality and the international quality that a lot of teams can bring off the bench. Not everybody, but the top teams can make changes. You know, we see some of the top teams like changing 3 internationals for 3 internationals off the bench, you know, particularly around front row positions. Not everybody's able to do that. But, you know, so the injuries have played a part as regards, you know, having the ability to rotate their bench and kind of pick specific players for certain impacts, weather-related situations, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's having an effect. But we've seen throughout these pool stages when Munster have come under pressure and the games have got a bit frantic, some of the decision-making has been poor. I probably mentioned this in the last few weeks about you're trying to find positives out of a bad run. Toulon aside, that was a fantastic performance and a really cohesive defensive display as well. And the team seemed full of energy in that game. But I think there's a few things starting to have appeared in those last few weeks around some of the decision making and that impact off the bench. So the harsh reality here is learning from these kind of harsh lessons of learning from these performances and going back to, you know, even when they go back to Northampton and looking at small things that they could have been better at, more accuracy around the breakdown. Graham Rowntree said it himself, kicking when they should have run, running when they should have kicked. And, you know, look, it's obviously when you're sitting in the stands, even coaches or players or pundits, you can see certain things that sometimes it's difficult in a match to see. So there's a trend there that's happened, Fiona, and I think if I was to go specific on something, I think the depth of the squad and the quality coming off the bench is possibly making a difference.
Yeah, and on that as well, Quinny, Dan Roberts wrote, why did the coach and staff not bring in Joey earlier in the game? The momentum of that half needed changing, and Joey could have provided that. A waste of time with 4 minutes to go.
I agree he came on too late, but I think it was, I think I would have, you know, if I was making that change, I would have brought him in to put Crowley at 12 and have two kicking options there, either side of rucks, taking a little bit of pressure off Craig Casey, because some of the box kicks in the second half, again, it's a difficult situation when I was down pitch side, the wind was swirling, unbelievable. And, you know, some of Craig Casey's box kicks in the second half, he's trying to kick them up the touchline, but they're nearly going infield. And George Furbank is getting a lot of time to run back. So I think some of the kicks we invited there, back three, Slade home. They were, you know, Tommy Freeman, they were mad to run back. And it was probably not a game where you could go catch the ball and kick it. They were kind of chasing the game in that second half, Northampton. So that was, and their mentalities to attack. So I think, yes, he should have been brought on earlier. But look, if Munster saw the game, Fiona, again, you know, I'd love to be bringing on powerful forwards who can make a difference and really squeeze out the game and, you know, maul, make some really hard jars in the carries and stuff like that. But we probably just don't have that depth with all the injuries as well. So even if everybody was fit, and there's no point kind of picking all the players again, but we're missing a lot of power. And power wins you games like that in wet, windy, tough conditions to play in. And I just think, again, the little bit of power came to the fore. So the effort that these players are making is second to none, you know, and we've said that regularly. You can't criticize them and say they're not trying. Specific stuff, that little mistakes and accuracies around the breakdown. You just look at the try at the end, Sam Graham's try. John Hodnett breaks out from the line out. The option was to pass to someone running his shoulder. He decides to go himself, which is fine. Strong, aggressive carry. You want to win that ruck and put it down the touchline and say, job done. Simple things done well. Owen Clark's clean out there with Courtney Laws. He just doesn't get over where the ball is presented, and Laws locks in there. So Northampton then get a penalty and they kick into the corner, and that's a try from Sam Graham. That's the match. Some of the penalties, and you know, Finn Smith was brilliant. And Alex Mitchell, their halfbacks were superb. And I think if Munster were to look, and some of the players, the way they managed the game quite well, and you know, I think their kicking game, the accuracy around some of Mitchell's box kicks was really good. I think he's improved a huge amount, Alex Mitchell, and he had a wonderful game for them. So I think that's a factor, and you know, cost them the game in the second half. They could not shake Northampton off. So that's a problem. And I think the urgency and the energy kind of dropped a little bit as regards that real urgency. You need to get the breakdowns to win. And look, Northampton are a very good side. I probably keep saying this. They're a very strong, powerful side who are very, very abrasive and aggressive. So they've lots of players who are really confrontational. They get stuck in. They, you know, no kind of prima donna type players. So I think they just made it really difficult for Munster. And it's another kind of harsh learning curve. And it probably frustrated a lot of people, frustrated themselves for sure, because, as I said, their effort level and their work rate and the application is there. It's just getting those accuracies and some of those small decisions. So very small margins. And you know what? A very good side came to Thomond Park and beat them.
Yeah, I'll just read a couple more and then we can kick on. Look, Oisín Short has O'Mahony, massive loss for the final 10 minutes. Munster need to play the conditions better. Losing Ahern and moving Coombs the second row was a double loss. 10, 12, 13 combo was super going forward. Atmosphere and pre-game build-up was super also, he said. A big result needed in Cork on February 3rd. I think we'd be looking for the all European result. But yes, I think we know how last season, I suppose, South Africa game really kick-started Munster as well. And look, this was Bucks. I thought this was spot on as well. The in-game management was poor. Freeman was gratefully taking every kick we served with ease, and yet we persisted with that tactic, which rarely delivered for Munster. Look, you'll like this one, Quinny. We'll leave it there. Ray O'Leary, Alan, do you recall you got man of the match in Thomond Park when a young buck called Courtney Laws was playing? Last weekend, Laws was the biggest nuisance on the pitch, and it showed.
So he's trying to say there that I was the biggest nuisance on the pitch.
Exactly.
That's fairly accurate.
Biggest nuisance in this podcast, I think. What do you think,
I've learned to take all those messages over the years as compliments. Being a nuisance is a compliment on a rugby field, and I was probably decent at that. But I remember, I mentioned it last week about Courtney Laws. You know, he was only a 20-year-old playing against us in 2009, 2010 season, and he was fantastic again. I think he had some big moments, you know, big turnover. And you know yourself, Fiona, if you're doing commentary in a game and you're picking a player of the match, they're the kind of things that jump out at you. A player might only have 3 big turnovers, but they're the things that change a game and stand out really. Sometimes it's really unfair that we end up looking, oh God, such and such is player of the match because he had 3 big turnovers. But they're the significant impacts in a game. And I think Courtney Laws had them. You know, I think he's just at it all the time. And he's a Peter O'Mahony type player, isn't he? For them, he probably lifts players around him because he's achieved so much in his career. So brilliant player, and he stood up. I thought their impact off the bench was very powerful and significant, and again, a lot of they kind of rolled up their sleeves, didn't they? It's hard to kind of pinpoint it. When I look back at the game, there's not a huge amount that Munster did actually wrong as regards, oh God, this was blatantly wrong, or this was a terrible pass, or this was a terrible missed tackle. I think they just, you know, Finn Smith nails the couple of penalties, doesn't he? He gets a wonderful drop goal. And you just start to sense then that they believe that if they can get into the last, 10 minutes of the game, they have a chance. They're going to get that opportunity. Given that, what happened at the end of that first half with the Furbank yellow card, Munster going to score. Then there's a red card for Langdon, and Peter O'Mahony scores. You think this is they're going to kick on here.
Yeah.
You know the way it's sometimes, and we've heard it so much in sport, when team loses a player, it kind of galvanizes them, and that happened. But the type of game it is to go down to 14 men when it's very hard to play expansive rugby and find edges. It's the conditions suited in a sense that you didn't really notice that they were down to 14 men in that second half. Do you know what I mean? So it was hard for Munster to kind of exploit and find that space. But it was very disappointing. But look, that's it. They've got to take the ups and downs and this journey and learn from it.
For me, lads, just watching as a supporter, I just thought the second half was very flat from both the performance point of view, but even in the crowd, you could sense the kind of the angst, I suppose, and the anxiousness, I suppose, building up throughout the second half. Fiona, for you, I suppose, watching on, what was your biggest takeaway from that second half performance watching Munster?
Yeah, look, I think we saw it in a lot of the tweets. It was the game management, those little moments really, where a couple of seasons ago you expect Munster to come up with those big moments, big battles. I even felt, I suppose, for me, at what was it? I think it was about 73 minutes. So you had about 7 or 8 minutes left in the game. There were 3 points behind. You really thought that they were going to get up the pitch and try and score. And they didn't even get really much possession in those 7 minutes. So it was just the game management, the kicking. I questioned that. How come they weren't changing that, especially with the wind that was in Thomond Park? And you don't like to pick out certain things, but there was a huge moment for me. Quinny, you might remember this. It was on that scrum. It was 66 minutes. Munster were 8 points ahead. They got the initial hit on the scrum. I think it was Brian Gleeson. Obviously, a young guy will learn from this. Ball was struck back. He left it in for that second too long. You could see the ref didn't want to blow it, but because they got the shunt on then Northampton, yes, obviously, you should be winning your scrums. But if he was able to get his hands there and get that ball out, I don't think the referee would have given away that penalty and it would have been Munster possession. Instead, penalty, and then you're down into I suppose those moments where Northampton are going to kick on from there. So those little moments were creeping in throughout the second half, where those tiny little errors are just I suppose it's hard to say game management, but just getting the feel of that scrum, understanding that ball needs to come out now, little things like that, looking at the box kick, changing it up. I felt like we were just a bit flat in around those areas, and as well as that, once Peter O'Mahony left the field, I just thought there was even line out time, people kind of looking at each other. We spoke about a scrum. I think it was 80% scrum this week, but those two scrum penalties, I think it was 2 out of 10, were huge moments in the game. So you're looking to say, okay, 80%, they lost 2 out of 10, not too bad, but it's where they're losing the scrum and how it's affecting the final score. So that's something that I suppose really is annoying me with the Munster performance as well.